Good evening, happy Friday, welcome to the Trey Olds Radio Show. This is Trey Olds. Thank you for joining us this evening. Today my special guest is voiceover actor and radio show host, Mr. Larry Van Nuys. Thank you and join us in a minute. How did you get started in radio? How did you get started in the wonderful world of radio?
Well, actually, my first opportunity in broadcasting was in television. I was living in Phoenix, Arizona, and a neighbor of mine was involved in the local TV station, KPHO, Channel 5 there, and said, gee, Arthur Godfrey's sister, Kathy, is a host of a show called Storytime, and that runs every weekend, and they're looking for a young guy a boy to do the Borden's commercial, which is a commercial sponsor of the show, and he said, gee, you want to do anything like that? And I didn't know from Adam about television or radio or broadcasting. I just knew I was a ham, and I kind of liked being the center of attention and all that. So I said, okay. And so I went and did that segment on the show, on the TV show in Phoenix for a couple of years. And from then on, I was kind of hooked. And radio and television and voiceovers and all of that seems to be part of the same animal.
Oh, yeah. I've done radio, I've done voiceover work, I'm an actor, really. I've done theater acting, but it always comes back to radio and voiceovers, and that's interesting,
My first job in radio was in Los Angeles for a jazz station. Mm-hmm. Actually, when I got the job, it was just a youngster, but it wasn't a jazz station then. It was playing Percy Faith and, some of the standards of the time. This was right out of high school, 59, 60, somewhere in there, early 60s at least, KBCA, and they were playing Percy Faith and Doris Day and all of that, and I said, gee, I'd like to play some jazz, and it became, from there, everybody started playing the jazz, and it became a big major jazz station, and from there, I went and I did other stations. I even went to El Centro, to KXO, which was my first real job where I had to, be away from home and, do work and live. I was able to do that, and I enjoyed it, and it was, my first real experience at being a midday host on an important radio station. And the thing about being in a small market like that is that aside, in contrast to being on the air in LA, you're going to see Mick Jagger walk into the CVS. There are big stars everywhere. Mm-hmm. But in a little town, you get to be kind of the big guy in the town, the biggest celebrity in the town if you're on radio or TV in a small market like that. And it's seductive. It's kind of very cool, and I really enjoyed it. And from there, went on and do a lot of radio stations in large markets and major markets. But those are the kind of first experiences that I had with being a broadcaster.
Yeah. Do you still do radio today? Do you have your own show today?
I do. I have, coincidentally enough, the man who owned KBCA, which was my first radio station, has hired me to do one of his stations in Los Angeles, which is K-Surf, which is LA Oldies. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing the morning show there from 6 to 10. And I'm having a ball because I play all the music that, I'm so familiar with. At my age, I kind of grew up with all of those things, music of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So I'm enjoying it, and it's kind of cosmically perfect for me to have started out with Saul Levine, who owned the station and owns the station. And at this point in my career, I don't know if I'll do any more radio or any more work at all. But I must say that it's fun, and it's kind of cool to be working with Sal again at this point in my career.
Yeah. Yeah, radio is very interesting because there's so many different ranges you can go from, you know. When I first started out my show, I played music, and then a few years after that, I started interviewing people, and it's interesting.
Well, you know, I haven't done just music, although I've been a DJ for a long time. You know, I did Nuys. I was a news anchor for KNX, which at the time was the CBS-owned and operated AM flamethrower in L.A., 50,000-watt clear channel. And I did that for 10 years. So, you know, I've really pretty much, you know, I've done just about everything you can do in this business. And for me, it all is the same in some important respects. It's dealing with the audience. It's trying to be as truthful as you can with your presentation, and being as unique as your personality allows. And it's just lots of fun. Plus, I have a lot of television experience as well, and a lot of voiceover experience. But you know, this is not about my resume, which is, you know, which anybody could look up online. It's about the fact that I've spent a lifetime. I've been lucky enough to spend a lifetime doing something that is really totally fun.
Yeah. And that's the main thing, you know, as long as you're having fun, keep doing it, you know, as long as you enjoy it.
Yeah, you know, I took a year off, and I thought, gee, you know, this is going to be great. I'll, you know, take a jacuzzi and paint and listen to symphonies and do a lot of reading. And after about 6 months, I started to say to myself, you know, this is theoretically wonderful, except that I really miss working, and thank God I have my health, and I still have the voice and the brain that works relatively well. So I said, you know, why don't I just do more of this? And, you know, if it turns out that at the end of the line I'm slumped over a Sennheiser saying, get ready for Laverne and Shirley coming up next, and then I'm gone, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, keep doing it until you drop dead, I guess, huh?
Yeah, or, you know, God retires you, which can happen if you get sick or if something happens where you're unable to work anymore. But at this point, I'm still chugging along.
Well, that's good. My next question to you is, what is the most challenging part for you being in the industry? What do you find is the most challenging or most difficult part being in the industry?
There is no difficult part. I don't see any problems that can't be overcome. I just, you know, sometimes, you know, there are things that come up that seem like obstacles, but if you treat them as obstacles, then a different dynamic comes into play. As far as I'm concerned, if I have to deal with a program director or a manager or an owner that is being unreasonable, you know, then that happens. You know, it's the way it goes. Stuff happens, and I have two choices. I can say, well, let's work this out and we can make it work, or leave and go to someplace else. Mm-hmm. But there are no problems I don't see any problems. There aren't any real challenges other than the professional and creative challenges you place on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you can always overlook problems, and like you said, you know, there's always a choice, you know. Yeah.
There are choices. You decide to make them. And you weigh and balance the up and downsides of every situation, and you make what is the best decision for you. And frankly, I started out right out of high school, and I've never been out of work unless I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been doing my show for 6 years, and, you know, it's wonderful. I hope to keep doing it for another 10 years, you know. I don't want to stop doing it, you know.
Well, I know some of the challenges you face, Trey, and I give you a lot of credit, and frankly, I don't do a lot of interviews, but I decided to do your show because of who you are, and
Thank you very much. My last question to you is, what is your advice to people who want to get into the radio industry, or the industry in whole, voice industry, radio industry? What is your advice to people who want to get into the business?
Well, if you're faint of heart, don't do it. But if you have the desire and the skills, and don't expect to be perfect, and bring truth to your presentation, and be real, and understand who your audience is, and speak to them as if they're sitting next to you in a chair. There's an intimacy involved, and frankly, I've always believed that the audience can spot a phony in a second. And if you really want to do this work, I encourage you. It's been very, very good for me. It's been a wonderful way to make a living, and I wouldn't change a thing. And I only wish you the best of luck. So much of what happens in a career, not only the broadcasting career, but all careers, so much has to do with, who you meet along the way, the contacts and connections that you make, and also a great deal of luck. The idea is, when your opportunities happen, to have the skills and wisdom to be ready to step up on the soapbox. That's the whole point. The point is, live a little, learn a little, notice everything, listen a lot, and who knows? You could be the next superstar.
Yeah, and only you can do it, You have to make the first move,
Exactly, and the thing is, in this business, a lot of what it is that you say, particularly on radio, where it's like the Voice TV show, none of it has to do with the way you look. Whether you're beautiful or not so beautiful like me, it doesn't really matter, because the essence of what you say, and your inflection and your voice and the tonalities and the things that come out of your brain are the only things that the audience can judge you about. So in order to have life's experience, and in order to say the things that really touch base and resonate with your audience, you really have to live a little. So enjoy every experience, but as you're enjoying these experiences, make mental notes in your head saying, gee, one day I'd love to talk about this on the air, or one day I'll have enough experience to be able to relate well with my audience. So a lot of living has to be done, and when you're young, you may be able to do a great job. I know a lot of young broadcasters who are wonderful on the air, and it just depends on who you are, and it takes a while. Don't be impatient. It takes a while to figure out who you actually are as a broadcaster. You start out imitating people that you admire and respect, that you've heard and liked, and that goes on for a while. You try to be, Rick Dees, or any of the others, Wolfman Jack, or whoever it is that you like, and you imitate them a little bit. But the fact is, after a while, you figure out who you are, and that's when the good stuff happens.
Oh yeah, you have to make up your own name. You have to be you.
You have to be you, but as they say, it doesn't automatically happen. You start out being who you like, and then all of a sudden you find your legs.
Oh yeah. Well, Mr. Van Nuys, it's been a pleasure talking to you and hearing about your career, and thank you very much.
Trey, it's an honor to be on with you, and as I said earlier in our interview, I understand the things that you face a little bit. I've been involved in a lot of fundraising, and I must say you're really a very special guy, and anything you ever need, my number.
Thank you very much. You have a good day.